Welcome back to another episode of The Canon. I'm your host, Terry, and today I'm doing a quick little editorial on why I think the Elseworld / What If / standalone movies are going to save the comic book genre. Now, I don't want people to misconstrue that and think that I'm saying that the comic book genre is in trouble or fatigue and all that crap. No, we're doing healthy, and I don't think that the genre will have any real trouble for some time, 5 to 10 years or so, but there will be that point where the bubble bursts, and there will be, a point where we are oversaturated. I don't think the fatigue will be there, but this really stems to the very logical concept that a lot of these movies are going to start turning into the same thing if we don't mix it up a little bit. And what I mean by that is, this is a business. We all know this. And so people want to make the most money. The reason that the boom came was because Avengers made a lot of money, and not even just Avengers, but it showed that if you do it correctly, you could have a whole stable of products that are all profitable because they have one connected storyline or whatnot. And so once people saw the high ceiling that we never thought a comic book movie could have, a lot of people jumped in on it and they want to make money. So I think we've come to realize that there's a certain way to make that mass appeal. And this all stems for me from the Justice League movie. And if you've listened to me before, if you haven't, you could go check that out. It wasn't a rant. It was, I don't know what it is, a little editorial, but the whole thing with Justice League was Warner Brothers trying to pivot and go in a completely different direction that mimicked Marvel's tone. And we all know the problems DC have. This is not a Marvel DC thing. This is all the properties that we're talking about. But this is just an example that we know they had different issues with the leadership at Warner Brothers. And so they mistakenly think the tone was the reason that their movies were bad. And that's not the case at all. That's a whole different conversation. People disliked it was for some people, but there were different reasons that people didn't like the movie. But as I've said, the tone is the thing that is going to cap the ceiling of how much money they can make. And even if they were wrong in switching the tone to think the movie would be better, as we saw, it clearly wasn't. But they were right to understand that the tone has to be lighter in order to have the mass appeal that Marvel does. And I know people will argue whatever, but that's fine. We don't even have to talk about the actual content. We just talk about we can talk about the actual concept of what I mean. And that is that people go to the movies, not everybody, but the mass general audience go to the movies to escape. It's escapism. They want to feel good. That's why fantasy is so popular when it's done right. That's why action is so popular. I mean, in comedy, people want to generally leave the theater feeling good, in a good mood, and they want to have fun. And on top of that, when you're having a fun tone, now that allows a lot more people to not only come in, like younger kids and older people that aren't fans of the genre, but it also allows them to engage, because if you're going in to Batman v Superman, a movie which I love, but you don't necessarily see the underlying concepts and themes when you're a younger kid. You're kind of just there to see Batman and Superman. And so, again, not saying one is better than the other, but for making money, one is definitely better than the other. And so that is something that I realized when we talk about Oscar movies. So I'm into Oscar movies. I do reviews. And so there are a lot of Oscar movies that I don't want to see another time, or that it's kind of hard to get through because you're thinking about so much. They challenge you mentally, or you're feeling emotional, really sad about something, or, you're angry about something. Those are movies that you don't necessarily leave feeling good about. and you definitely don't want to watch again. And so while those movies have their place, I think in the popcorn entertainment blockbuster world, it's hard to use that tone. And that's kind of what Man of Steel BVS was going for. And then on the flip side, so let's talk about something more positive. Logan. Logan, people highly rated, made a good amount of money, but still it's going to be a cap. It's not going to be that gigantic blockbuster that it was because it's rated R. It's really violent. There's a lot of kids that won't be able to go see it. There's a lot of older generation non-comic book fans that don't want to go see it. And that's not something you want to watch again. I literally just bought Logan just now, and I love that movie. It's almost been a year or over a year, and I just bought it because I didn't want to pay money for something I know I'm not going to watch more than once a year, because it is extremely gory. And if that's not your thing, then that's not something you're going to keep repeating. And it is sad, and that's something that you don't sit through over and over again. At least I don't, and I know general fans don't. And so all this is leading up to my point that eventually, I feel like studios like Warner Brothers is definitely shifting the tone to be more family friendly. Now we got Fox potentially being bought by Disney, and there's a lot of different conversation about what they will do with Fox, but we do know if they come into the MCU, they will start to turn into a more family friendly, brand. We already have Sony Spider-Man part of the MCU, and not that he was ever dark, but we know what kind of mood they're going for with Spider-Man. So it's not too many properties left out there that won't, be under that Marvel brand. And with Warner Brothers trying to turn DC over a new leaf, we're headed to a place where it's all going to feel the same. And that to me is going to get us to the bubble. That's going to get us to the oversaturation point when we aren't telling different stories, or we aren't having different flavors to these movies, and not just, Ant-Man. Oh, that's a heist film. Kinda. I mean, it has a heist little flavor to it, but I mean true different flavors and shades to these movies. And so that brings me to my overall point. I think the one thing that can really save and invigorate the genre are these Elseworld. Now, Elseworld is kind of associated with DC, but follow me what I'm saying. I'm saying Elseworld as what if stories, as one-shot stories, stories that exist outside of the continuity of whatever universe you're doing, or that just simply stands alone. It's not connected to anything. And so what these stories then allow you to do is to tell different stories without compromising any of the continuity that you have. And it allows you to be off brand a little bit. Now, the one thing I will say is it will take time. It will take a pioneer. It will take somebody to really push the market and brand of whatever you want to call them. I don't think you'll call them Elseworld. That's a little long, but if you want to call them What If, or if you got your own title for the series, but it's going to take some time to push that out there and fans understand what this is. But when you get to the point where the casual fan understands it has this brand, it's a What If movie or whatever, then they know, okay, it's not the same actors. It's not the same continuity. It won't be the exact same thing. It's just its own little movie. And then once you get to that point, then you open up the door of what you can do. And what you can do is a lot of fun things. So, again, back to Logan. Logan is effectively an Elseworld story. If you follow the news, you know that director James Mangold said that this is a different timeline than the rest of the X-Men. So you have some people talking about Days of Future Past and how it ended up bad with Logan, or how this and that, and how did this happen? None of that applies to Logan. Logan is its own timeline, and Fox is kind of loosey-goosey anyway, but they were smart enough to do that because that allows them to tell the story of Logan, X-23, and all this other stuff, Professor X killing the X-Men. It allows them to do that without being tied down by any storylines from the X-Men universe. Then it allows you to be rated R. Now, a lot of people don't know Logan's an Elseworld, But if you understand that concept and you look at it and say, yeah, it makes sense. I was able to be bloody and gory and see a different type of Wolverine than I've seen before because this isn't the same timeline. Now, I think you could take it a step further. I think you could start doing different actors. So we already know we got a Jared Leto Joker, supposedly. And we know that Warner Brothers wants to do an Elseworld-type movie with Joker with a different actor. At first, it was like, okay, we want him to be younger, but now they're talking about Joaquin Phoenix. So they're going just completely separate Joker. And I think that allows, Elseworlds allow you to do that because now we can get more casting, fanboy, fangirl casting. We can see some different people in those roles that we always wanted to see instead of waiting for a franchise to die. And then them trying out, we can see them in these different stories. And then, like I said, it doesn't tie you down to the actors or whoever that you already have because it's not the same timeline. It's not the same world. It's something different. And, not only that, the main thing is it opens up the stories. And the stories are fun. I mean, these are fun stories that you couldn't do in the cinematic universe world. And so if you aren't familiar with some of the stories, you got some great ones. I mean, one that I'm particular to is the Elseworld story where the Green Lantern ring chooses Bruce Wayne instead of Hal Jordan. And so he becomes a Green Lantern instead of Batman, or however you want to play that. And, there's a number of them. I mean, you got, Red Sun, which is probably one of the more popular ones where Superman, landed in Soviet Russia instead of Kansas. And so what happens then? And, not even DC, not just DC stuff, but you got, of course, the Marvel stuff. You got the, Old Man Logan's kind of not, but you got, like Deadpool kills Marvel or whatever. You could probably call it something different. But you could just make up stuff. Even the ones that aren't in the books, you can make up. Like one, that I would love to see that I was thinking of is with Black Panther. What if Black Panther and say, what if through the Soul Stone or one of the Infinity Stones, all the past Black Panthers were reincarnated and now they're all kind of fighting over who's the ruler of Wakanda or how to best rule Wakanda. Like something cool like that you think of, that can be a movie. And I think you can do these for lower budget, but you know, Marvel, people like that, they can do it for higher budget and still make their money back. But you would probably try to shoot for some, smaller in scale or smaller in budget so that you could make that money back, but I still think they will work. I mean, so I don't know. I personally feel like that's the way to really open up not only the creative freedom in storytelling, but it also opens up the freedom of showing different shades of yourself. So if a Marvel did, instead of calling it an MCU movie or whatever, you call it the What If movie or whatever label you use, call it a What If movie. It could be rated R. It could be, you know, gritty, and people can understand that and understand that it doesn't have to do with the current slate. And I understand how it could be confusing at first, but I really think that these studios are capable of marketing in such a way that it's going to come across to the fans as something that is different and completely different. And so whether you want to make a new graphic logo or so, I don't know, whatever, that's fine. I mean, DC, they could call it Elseworld. They could even, do Dark Universe, whatever they wanted, whatever you wanted to do, honestly. I think, DC has started to kind of do it. Logan under wraps was the first one to do it. But I think if everybody gets on board, even if Marvel buys Fox, even if DC, or Warner Brothers sells DC, even if Spider-Man stays with the MCU, I think there's a way to start opening up these stories and start having some fun with it. So those are my thoughts on the Elseworld what if / standalones, but I would love to hear what you guys think. Outside of a Marvel vs. DC, outside of any of that, what do you think for the comic book movie genre in general? Would this be something that would boost your excitement? Would it be something that's too confusing for fans? Would it be something that you would be excited about? Go to the comment section. Let me know. Thumbs up, subscribe, share it around. And remember, if you heard it here, it's official canon.